little bit of recap on the first Swami Says Small Business Tips episode. Prove your assumptions was the first topic that we did. Second topic was be scrappy. Third topic was just do it. On this episode, what we're going to talk about is the art of pivoting, making your mistakes early, and the importance of self-development. For the first small business topic of the day, we're going to talk about the art of pivoting. What I mean by pivoting is essentially the example I was talking about within the first Swami Says episode. Downtown market wasn't working for Zooted, so you know what? We made the quick pivot to go to university-based market and advertise it from there. That decision making, what matters in terms of whether your project is going to be successful is how quickly you can make those decisions without losing time. The more time you lose, the more feeling that you'll get is, oh, this is not working, the stress will accrue, all of that mumbo jumbo in terms of your emotions and taking too long to do something. But essentially, what I mean by the art of pivoting is moving from Zooted Downtown to Zooted University of Cincinnati, going from cash orders to using a CRM system when it comes to Zooted, and how quickly you pivot. What I mean by that from a social sentiment level is basically when I used to release graphics with Zooted in the beginning, I used to release some stuff that I used to just do on my own. And basically it would, to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is cool. Everything looks nice and dandy in terms of my design perspective. When you put that out for the audience to see, you'll realize that you are not a graphic designer. You specialize in small businesses and business in general. And the graphic designer has a different eye in terms of what attracts the audience, essentially. So even in terms of those small, minor, what people don't realize, there's a certain pressure you put on yourself when you showcase that you are doing something on, like, creating a brand or creating a company, because everything you put out here thereafter is being judged to that industry standard level. And me going from putting out a graphic of myself designing it to my graphic designer who's a fourth year DAP student designing it, how quickly I go from that first step to that step right there to that graphic designer DAP step, that's what determines how successful I'll be. And that's the ability to self-reflect and compare yourself to the industry standard on a regular basis. The art of pivoting, this is one thing that I want to emphasize a lot, this is one of the most important lessons within business in a variety of different contexts. So definitely write this down and do not ever forget that. Second small business tip of the day, make your mistakes early. Initially, your mistakes are going to be cost related. There's going to be a lot of things that you think are going to work that don't work. There's going to be a lot of equipment that you think is going to be good that wasn't good. There's going to be a lot of services you'll pay for that didn't live up to the expectation. If something is not working, stop doing it. Do not keep on putting your money within an avenue that's not producing results, and your ability to judge that has to be very timely, especially considering that you're doing a million other things when it comes to a small business. As much as I despise the university environment, I do value the power of perspective. So in terms of making your mistakes early, one of the things a professor told me once upon a time was any small business better have additional capital 12 to 14 months after the inception date. And this is business 101, and this is a lesson to write down, is if you don't have money to reinvest a year to a year and a half from now, you're going to be in trouble, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes within that year. That's the whole first year, that's the whole process of the year, is you're going to make so many mistakes, and all of them are going to be cost related, that you're going to be working on a pretty thin budget towards the end of that year. You need to have additional reinvestment coming in so you can then the second year execute and expand however you desire. And one other thing with making your mistakes early is a lot of people, in terms of them maturing and progressing from a mental basis, it's all about how much experience they get within the real world, and experience is education. So the sooner you get that experience, the sooner you make those mistakes, the more perspective you have on how to go forward and what plans to make. Do not undervalue the ability to, or the essence of making your mistakes early. Start them as early as possible. For the third small business tip of today, we're going to talk about self-development. And what I mean in terms of self-development, and you're going to think, oh, how does this have to do something with small business, self-development, blah, 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 whatever. Basically, look, self-development is a difference between the average and the above average. And when you have a small business, like I said initially, you're gonna put out a lot of graphic work. You're gonna put out a lot of video work, and initially you might think it looks good, or even a small thing as a business card. You might think that this design looks good, but to other people, is it aesthetic or is it not aesthetic? That's a very objective thing, and there's a lot of minor detail that goes into even making a small piece of craft such as that. When I talk about self-development, basically comparing yourself to the industry standard from a small business perspective and constantly innovating, constantly iterating. And it's easy to be complacent with basically good enough in terms of something. If the slogan is good enough, the logo looks good enough, the color looks good enough, the ad marketing plan is good enough, a lot of things can be good enough. It's easy for you to be complacent, but if you were complacent, someone's gonna come and copy exactly what you did and add on to it. That same situation actually happened when we initially started Zooted. There's a competitor called Midnight Express. We have contracts signed with all of our Zooted restaurants. This guy just came in and said, I'll deliver from Skyline to McDonald's, anything and everything you want delivered with pharmacy items included and shit. What I started doing is calling them a decent amount, or placing Gossen placed a lot of fake orders with him, and he got frustrated, and there was no system behind it, so he eventually eroded away. Anyone could come in and copy exactly what you're doing if you're not comparing yourself to the industry standard. So having the ability to self-develop between average, because you will always start at average, and above average is a big skill. There's a lot of people in the world that have great video production skills. There's a lot of people in the world that have great graphic design skills. There's a lot of people in the world that have great small business knowledge. But to get to the next level, they need to add on the extra oomph. They need to add on the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours rule in terms of being ahead of in terms of having enough work ethic to support that they're the industry standard. And this is a pretty good quote that I kind of relate back to self-development in a sense. It's by Steve Jobs, and it talks about anyone can have a good idea. Me and you, anyone, we can have a good idea, but in terms of executing and building a good idea, you need to have a ridiculous amount of craftsmanship in order to do that. And that craftsmanship you cannot understand until you're within a situation. Then you understand how carefully you have to build every small piece of your vision in terms of the smaller details make the bigger picture. So you got to perfect every small detail until it's the vision you see. All of that is what I mean when I say self-development. There's a difference between the average and above average. Compare it not only to yourself, but when you're a small business, you are your small business. So keep that in mind. Thanks for watching the second episode of Swami Says Small Business Tips. Definitely check out next week's episode, where we're going to be talking about the power of perspective, along with one of my 101 business rules, having no pride, having no emotion, how those get used within management and how those get used on a daily basis. So definitely tune in next week. There's going to be a lot of stuff we haven't talked about yet, a couple surprises here and there, and definitely a guest speaker might be coming on board next week too. So tune in for that. And thanks for watching this episode. Follow me on Twitter at Zindani3. Swami Says Small Business Tips, 3 business tips a week will keep your profit margins looking deep. Over and out.